Have you ever noticed how much love magic shows up in fantasy? Not just as like a spell or something, but as the most powerful kind of magic in the world. We use magic systems to bring real-world concepts to life, right? Art-based magic systems are all about the power of the creative process of expressing ourselves. Language-based magic systems, like true names, are often about the transformative power of words and persuasion and knowing something intimately. But love magic often stands out as more powerful than any of them. In fact, it's often so powerful that it can single-handedly override everything else and solve the plot. And we have to wonder, why? And you might not know this, but I want to tell you about it because it's awesome. You can watch my video on how food is a world-building superpower right now, ad-free, after this video, over on Nebula at the link down below. So, why love magic? Well, sometimes it's lazy and weird, and it being so overpowered can be a big problem, and we will get to that. But first, I think we need to understand why and how it shows up in storytelling. In some stories, love becomes a magic powerful enough to breathe life into something, even our art. In Studio Ghibli's The Cat Returns, love is creation. The characters in the Cat Bureau, like Baron and Toto the Crow, were made by artists who poured their care and effort and time into them. The act of creation is an act of love, of labor, and it gives more than just shape and form, it gives life.
Whenever someone creates something with all of their heart, then that creation is given a soul, you see? Like me and Toto there.
Love is usually a very soft magic system. Its weaknesses, costs, limits are often vague because love itself is often hard to define. Maybe it's weakened by betrayal or a lack of commitment. But I think mostly these stories explore how powerful love magic is through cost. Love is powerful because it demands so much from us. It means giving something of yourself to someone or something else. This idea shows up all the time in mythology, by the way. Creative magic where gods sacrifice themselves to create the earth, the sky, to birth life. In Brandon Sanderson's Mistborn series, the god Preservation gave up part of themselves, their very essence, to give humanity souls and create these free-thinking creatures, little pieces of God embedded in each of us, just like there are little pieces of us embedded in the people we love and art we make and the children we have. So much so that Preservation almost sacrifices their life here in an act of love. Love in these stories becomes more than just feeling. It is work, it is sacrifice, and it brings things into the world through that. The parallel to bringing children into the world is hard to miss here. Creating life, giving a part of yourself to something which will carry on beyond you. It's the sort of magic which is infinitely powerful only because we will often pay the cost of anything for it. We like to think of love as this fundamental energy which shapes everything, who we are and what we leave behind. Love is the sort of infinitely powerful magic in these stories because it's the sort of thing that we will pay any cost for. But the other side to this kind of magic system is how a lack of love, how being forgotten can kill us, can rob us of life. Think about toys which slowly break down and lose their personality because they're not loved anymore. And there is no better story to demonstrate this point than The Paper Menagerie by Ken Liu. A mother from Hong Kong makes her American-born son a box of humble origami creatures to play with. Tigers, water buffalo, sharks. They're simple toys, a small comfort in a home which can't afford much else. But they're also a bridge, a way to connect the boy with his Asian heritage while living in America. They're extensions of the mother's love for her son and his love for her. So much so that this little box of origami creatures come alive. The tigers prowl, the water buffaloes wallow, the shark swims circles in the goldfish bowl. But then, as all children do, the boy grows up, and he's teased for how he looks, for his heritage, and his beloved origami toys. He hides them away. He doesn't want to be Asian American, he just wants to be American. He doesn't want to eat his mother's traditional peppers and beef, he wants to eat pizza like all the other kids. He's ashamed of her, of those dumb little toys, embarrassed. He demands his mother speak English instead of Mandarin, but she struggles, she can't, and he gets angry at her. "Why aren't you like all the other mums?" he says, until eventually she gives up and she stops speaking to him at all so he doesn't have to feel ashamed. His love, not only for the origami, but his own mother disappears, and the origami animals stop moving. They lose their magic. They don't dance or swim or prowl. Whatever magic once animated them dies with that love. She had poured herself into those creations, and when they fade, she eventually does too. The mother dies before he can reconcile with her, but you get this sense in the story of the mother kind of feeling dead inside for years before that even happens. Unloved by this child that she brought into the world, that she gave everything for. And it's in this that the story gets at something deeper, that we can literally feel less alive, less ourselves when we don't feel loved. It gives us a sense of being real, of being human, and we become more fully ourselves. And it's only when we're unloved or forgotten that we can feel like we're fading into nothingness, that we're not real people at all. These magic systems bring those really complex relationships and feelings to life, and this is what fantasy does best. It places very real things in fantastical contexts that allow us to better understand them and empathize with them. The ability to love often marks this definitive moment where we're meant to see them as truly human. Dollmakers by Lynn Buchanan is a really great story about all these artists who bring dolls to life to fight and serve, and I don't think it's any coincidence that the one doll that the main character pours the most love and care into, perfectly carving and painting him, seems to be the most sentient, the most alive. They have the soul, that in being loved he seems to acquire a soul, so much so that he goes on to basically sacrifice himself, it seems. In other stories, love doesn't just give life, but it can heal, it can restore. It fixes what's broken. Think about how a parent kisses their child's scraped knee, and just for a moment the pain actually fades. That's love at work. In a lot of these stories, the raw emotion of trying to help a friend, a loved one, literally makes the magic more powerful. The power is exactly proportionate to how deep the friendship is, and in some rare cases, the magic is even powerful enough to defy what is usually the greatest power in the world: death. In WandaVision, Wanda's love brings Vision back to life, yes, but it's a twisted, tragic resurrection in a way. The magic isn't pure, it's tainted with grief and the inability to let go. Wanda's unwillingness to accept his death means she's not letting herself or him heal. Her unprocessed grief just leads to more pain.
But what is grief, if not love persevering?
It's a powerful magic here, but is it a good magic? Love can be a beautiful thing, but it can also be vengeful, lustful, angry, even selfish. This type of quote-unquote love magic often takes the form of potions or spells where they bind someone else to them. It becomes more of a prison than something liberating and beautiful. These types of magic might appear to be romantic or protective, but they're rooted in manipulation, in obsession, in uncontrollable grief masquerading as love. They're more a prison than liberating. We know that it will hurt to see Wanda let Vision and her children go, but that doesn't mean it's any less right of her to do so. But people will do terrible things for what they think and feel is love to them. And magic like this is often disastrous in fantasy. I actually really love stories where the magic is a little bit unpredictable, not perfectly in the control of the user. This is where that sort of soft magic comes in, where the magic, like love, can be kind of uncontrollable and catastrophic and get out of control. And love magic sometimes does this, the whole world burning down for the sake of one person. I mean, this kind of magic can sometimes drive the entire narrative conflict. But WandaVision does speak to perhaps the most powerful kind of love magic, a very specific version which shows up over and over in fantasy, one which I hope we have all felt or may one day feel: the magic of a mother's love. This shows up in fantasy and anime all the time as uniquely overpowered, even for love magic, and we have to ask, why? Like, why not a brother's love, or a father's love, or a second cousin twice removed's love? Sometimes a mother's love appears as protective magic, and it's hard to reference this without taking undoubtedly the most famous version of this in Harry Potter's mother Lily, who sacrificed her life to save her child and created a shield which protected Harry from the killing curse, which in turn destroyed the Dark Lord. What's more, it's a magic that Voldemort apparently never saw coming, never accounted for, that he fundamentally didn't understand. Love is one of those magics which sometimes evil itself cannot possibly fully comprehend. It's like outside of the realm of evil. It's that pure in some stories. Oftentimes a villain is shaped by the absence of love, and their magic is fueled by everything but it. It's fueled by resentment and anger, a desire for power. Maybe they think love is a weakness. All of which is why love magic is ultimately the thing that undoes them, right? They're blind to its power because they might have never felt it themselves, and it's the thing that they can never fully see coming. So much so that Voldemort let Harry pull the same trick again in sacrificing himself for his friends. Love magic here is Voldemort's downfall, and itself stronger than any hate or death, which makes the messaging of the series somewhat ironic these days, especially considering the author's recent opinions. In other stories, motherly love manifests as a dangerous force of nature. In The Girl Who Drank the Moon, the mothers of the Protectorate are forced to sacrifice one of their children each year to the woods on the edge of town. It's the only way to supposedly keep themselves and their other children safe, but what about the mothers left behind? Their grief, their love, so vast and powerful, it gathers in the sky, it presses down on the town in these dark clouds of sorrow. It hangs in this fog. The love they have for their children cannot be contained in their bodies and leaks out into the world in a way we rarely see in fantasy of other kinds of love. And we have to wonder, why is that? I think a lot of people see a mother's love as unique in society. It holds a special place. A mother's love is protection incarnate. It is unrelenting. It is a life of constant sacrifice. It's almost primal, ancient, and I started to think about how in a lot of fantasy, the most powerful magic is usually the oldest, the magic which goes back to the beginning of creation. It's the magic we never fully understand, but is bigger and older than us. But remember, magic is rarely free, and I think a lot of the time what makes a mother's love so uniquely powerful is how costly it is, how often selfless it is. For a lot of history, mothers have lost their lives trying to bring a child they love into the world. Does a child ever truly perceive how much their mother loves them when they're young? Do we even understand as adults? Do we finally only understand when we have children of our own? It's the sort of love which might never be returned or fully understood, but is often still given, often in the face of children being incredibly cruel to their mothers. I mean, I think we all have those times that we look back on our childhood and kind of wish that we didn't say that one thing to our mother, right? That we possibly at the time didn't even really think about how much it must have hurt them to hear that. And I think that's what makes this love magic show up as uniquely powerful in fantasy over and over again. In other stories, love magic breaks curses and undoes dark magic. You know, this is true love's first kiss, the only thing powerful enough. In stories like Beauty and the Beast, love frees cursed characters from the shackles of past punishments. But through being loved and learning to love, the Beast doesn't just become human again, he earns his humanity back. But a really interesting version of love magic actually shows up a lot in modern romantasy. Romantasy, you say? You're going to talk about that? And yes, I am. I'm not going to have anyone saying that, oh, it's not real fantasy or whatever. Don't do that. Don't be a dick.
Fix their hearts or die.
These stories mean a lot to a lot of people, and it's worth exploring why. In Sarah J. Maas's A Court of Thorns and Roses series, characters are paired off in these soul bonds, which offer these deep psychic connections. It's way more than just physical. Love magic here is destiny, it's fate. You're bonded to someone from the start. And I think I know why people like this idea, why we are drawn to it, because there's something really comforting in that. It's the universe putting a hand on your shoulder and promising that there is someone out there waiting for you, and you will find them. And that's reassuring, right? Because love is terrifying. Giving that much of yourself to someone else, you can get hurt. You will get hurt. The enemies to lovers trope is often full of characters hurting each other on the way to inevitably falling in love. And sometimes you're left staring at the ceiling at 2 AM wondering, did I just waste the last 10 years of my life with someone? But destined love sidesteps that fear, that worry. It says, yes, love will be hard, but love will be worth it. The magic system here gives a level of certainty to love that we sometimes worry we don't have, that maybe we missed the train on years ago. Similarly, other stories have characters reincarnating over and over and over again into the next life and still finding each other over and over again. Love conquers death once more, but in a different way. It stretches lifetimes. There's this little fun theory in Avatar: The Last Airbender that the Avatar supposedly looks like their love from their previous life. And you know what? It kinda works. It almost feels like they're carrying that love with them into the next life. In these stories, not even death can fully separate us from our love. It's why we get stories like Francis Ford Coppola's Dracula, where the Count literally survives centuries to find his reincarnated wife, hoping that in this lifetime they can finally be together. But there's a problem. The woman who has inherited his wife's soul is engaged to someone else, and he refuses to let her choose her own path. He forces her into this love that her soul remembers, but her heart doesn't want. And this brings up an interesting knot of tension in these stories. What if the character, resists that fate that destiny has in store for them, the person that they're supposed to want? It might sound comforting at first, but sometimes this love magic gets us to ask, are the most meaningful relationships the ones we are given from birth through destiny, or are they the ones we make for ourselves? Love magic can create conflict just as easily as it can bring people together. Often, it can drive the whole story. I felt like I have to mention one more example of love magic, and it's going to be from somewhere that you probably haven't thought about. Middle-earth. You might think, love magic? Middle-earth? I don't think so. I don't remember Gandalf making a love potion for Denethor. No, it's a lot more subtle than that. Tolkien very consciously made it so that the most powerful acts in his story and his world are kind of these everyday acts of love, rather than the actions of armies and curses and swords, right? That the true forces which change the fate of the world are these selfish acts of mercy, pity, forgiveness, love, self-sacrifice. Both Bilbo and Frodo had the chance to kill Gollum, but they chose not to. And Tolkien is pretty explicit that that's the decision which ultimately kinda destroyed the ring, which destroyed evil. In Middle-earth, acts of love have this kind of almost divine magic and threads of destiny woven into them that make them end up mattering the most. But the vagueness of love magic is also why, people kinda hate it a lot of the time.
The greatest magic of all
is friendship.
What the f?
And I get it, I really do. A lot of the time it can just feel like your characters are working for the entire story, you're really invested in all their skills, and then right at the end, they just go, "A wizard did it." And wow, the power of friendship and love saves the day. Without people really having to work for it or use their skills, it's just them feeling super intensely, when they could feel those things and have it not be super magical. I get it. And it can have some really weird implications for the rest of the narrative, like if someone's love brings another character back to life, what about all the other dead people? Were they just not loved enough? Was some mother's love good enough but not another mother's love? Do you really want love magic to be the most OP power in your world? Or should it be, something which doesn't tell the orphans and widows they didn't love their families enough? You know what the most OP magic really is?
Chronomancy!
Too often, love magic is a get-out-of-jail-free card for characters who've had a hard-on for each other when maybe, just maybe, they should have had to work for it like everyone else. And there's almost the sense of, oh, you don't like it? You don't like love? So yes, it can be bad. But all of this is why the best love magic stories, I think, usually focus on that cost. Cost to the person who loves, and sometimes to the person who is being loved, supposedly. Love is sacrificed, love is patient, but love can also be warped, and it's not always easy to love. So if you're going to have love magic in your story, make sure that you establish the possibility early on. Make sure that the characters, when they solve the plot, it feels like they actually did solve it through effort and trying and their growth as people, rather than it just sort of happening to them once they feel strongly enough about something. I think it tends to work best when the characters do get to solve the plot as they normally would, but love magic can kind of elevate it to another level and add a level of intrigue and spectacle. Fundamentally, I think we as humans want to believe that love is this fundamental driving force behind the universe, that it can make everything okay, that it can conquer death. And maybe sometimes it's that kind of hippie putting a flower in a gun type thing, but I think there's definitely a place for fantasy which has that kind of optimism, especially because I know that most humanity has felt the impact of love in their life and the people around them, and hopefully fewer than those that have felt the impact of a gun. Magic systems, both hard and soft, bring us closer to the power of things in the real world as we know them. It kind of brings them to life in new ways, and I love how fantasy does that. I think it's fantastic. But I want to ask you, what is your favorite example of love magic? Which story is it from? Let me know down in the comments below. One of my favorite examples is actually food, believe it or not. That the act of creating something for someone else and giving it to them, it kind of imbues it with the love that you made it with. Or think about potions and witches and cauldrons. I actually think that blending love magic with food is a really creative way to do it, because you're creating something, it's an act of labor, and they're consuming it, taking it into themselves. It's such a visceral way to capture that relationship. And from here, I actually started thinking about how, well, food is kind of a world-building superpower. Hear me out. It can be a bit difficult to communicate the depth of your fantasy world to your reader, right? Like, you've got all this information about your magic system, your culture, your economy, but characters need to eat all the time, and you can use food to explore all sorts of things through it. Trade, history, gender roles, right? We often focus on like big world-building things like wars and politics, and food is just not something enough people think about. And I couldn't stop thinking about this, so much so that I made a video on it. There's a whole other video that you can watch right now at the link down below, by the way, completely ad-free, I need to say, over on Nebula. Not to mention all my other videos, like actually, I didn't even tell you this one, but I've got another video about why and how the Dai Li turned evil in Avatar: The Last Airbender, which, you know what? You should go watch that as well. They're both great videos if you love fantasy and sci-fi and writing and world building, but yeah, you can watch all of it just right now. Nebula was where we brought all the best creators together to kind of give us the tools to make better stuff. We have a huge amount of exclusive content, and it supports us much more directly because guess what? It is owned by and made for creators like me and an audience like you. Not to mention it's like weirdly cheap. Like, I keep being astounded by how cheap it is. And even better, I'm gonna give you 40% off, but only if you use my link down in the description below. That is really important. It tells them that I sent you, and you get a better price in the first place. So, you know, do that. So go check out my world building food video right now. Come back here, let me know your thoughts on that video. And then after that, go watch the Sojourn, which is this incredible sci-fi audio drama that we've developed. Go watch Jet Lag, which is a hilarious game show. Go watch, well, anything you want, because there will be something that you want on there. That's the great thing about Nebula. You will know what you want to watch, and it's a place that we get to create great stuff which is free of the exploitation and problems and hurdles of YouTube and traditional media. We are creating something new. And I think you should join the hundreds of thousands of other people who are already a part of it, this big new thing. Stay nerdy, and I will see you in the future.